So recording.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Recording, transcribing. 1 second.
So we're recording entire our session, and after that we will upload it through our YouTube channel. So that's why we're recording the entire session.
1 second. Yeah. Slideshow. Present. क्या करे यार? Stop
फेरि क्लोज गर्नुस् न.
Close गरेर I'm
First open the slide in PPT. PPT को full screen राख्नु सर. त्यहाँदेखि चाहिँ प्रेजेन्ट
खोलेको हुनु पर्यो हैन?
ब्याकग्राउन्डमा फुल PPT खोल्नु पर्यो. त्यहाँदेखि चाहिँ then after you उयो के रे विन्डोज भन्ने अप्सन आउँछ नि गुगल मिटमा.
पछाडिपट्टि खोलेको छु. Now this Windows, then share.
विन्डोज शेयरमा हजुर.
Share पनि हुँदैछ.
Yes.
तर problem is it is not scrolling भएको छैन.
Make it full screen sir. एकैपल्ट full screen गरेर ट्राई गर्नुस् न. त्यसलाई full screen.
यो full screen पनि त भएको छैन. यो त यो प्रेजेन्टेसन नै ह्याङ भएको हुँदैछ. यो देखाउनु त देखाउँदैछ कि अहिले full screen छ है?
आएको छैन सर. No sir, it's not
Full screen आएको छैन?
It's not coming.
Presentation मैले दिए भने चाहिँ because you know it is a lot of animations are there. The balance on earth. 1 second. के गर्नु अब?
I think you should send the presentation to the meeting host.
That is what I'll do. So I have some links also. I'll also send that links. Light पनि गरिरहेको छ फेरि यहाँ हेर न यति बेला. Let me see what is the size of this presentation. It's 26.8 MB. I hope it will. So Gaurika, I'm sending you the email, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can send, and I will present it. Okay.
Attaching file. It's a Google Drive link. हो गया. Check it. I'll send you two more files. इसको भी रख लो, otherwise this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
आ गया?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me also WhatsApp. Okay. WhatsApp. अन्ना सर ठिकै हुनुहुन्छ?
हजुर एकदम ठिकठाक। म त अहिले I'm in Germany right now.
हजुर तपाईको मैले फोटोहरु
So I'm just
तपाईको मन त टाइम छ के पुरा त त्यही हो म चाहिँ
हुन्छ।
तपाईलाई अलरेडी सबै थाहै छ
No, but I just तपाईले के गर्नु भएको छ?
हजुर Six or 6.
But it's downloading. It's just take some time. So.
It is a big file, huh?
Okay. Yes, yes, sir.
I've sent you 2 more files. This is a video file which is linked.
Okay.
You keep it with the presentation, otherwise that presentation, that video will not play.
Okay, sir. I will. Okay. Received.
Let me again share the screen. Are you seeing the presentation now? Hello?
No, sir.
Hello? Presentation देख्दैछ?
No, sir.
No, sir. No, sir.
No, no?
No.
Okay.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, yes. It's downloading, sir. It takes some time. Okay.
It's a big file, so that is why I
Yes,
thought
sir. Yes, sir. That's why it's taking some time.
Now the presentation has appeared.
Yes, sir. Now it's
No, it
It's-
is.
it's going
Yo to
on.
hudai sakyo, sir. It is happening, but the moment I'm sharing this presentation is. I'm seeing this presentation, but I'm not able to play around. It is not scrolling. Yo hang hudai sir. Problem is. This call is going on. That was the reason why Gairika, I told
yes,
you that
sir.
I will log in at 4:30 and see, because this often happens while presenting online. This has happened in the past. This will happen in the future also.
Okay, sir. Mail করেছি।
Sir, if you share the entire screen, then this problem won't be there. you need to stop sharing and then again share. And while resharing, please ensure that you are sharing the entire screen.
That is what I'm doing, but somehow I don't know. Let me try again.
In the share option, you have to select the share entire screen option.
Share entire screen. Entire screen. See, this is what happens when I say when I do this entire.
Now go to the slide, sir.
Which side?
Slide that minimize this Chrome browser. And,
Okay.
Yeah, now go to the full screen.
Is it showing now?
Yes. Go to the next.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Is it showing? So, okay. Then thank you so much. Who is this? What is your name, sir?
Sir, Pallav. Actually, sir, I myself have encountered this problem in the past. That is why I was.
Thank you so much. So, Gaurika, you don't have to now.
Okay,
You
sir.
don't
May I
have to do
start?
that. So,
Okay, sir.
I'm starting the presentation. This is already 4:08.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. Today's important session, part of SAIARD webinar series. I am Gaurika Banerjee, and I have the honor to serving as your host and coordinators for today's webinar titled Managing Teesta Turbulence Disaster Risk Reduction Strategies for Flood Resilience in Sikkim and North Bengal. Today's topic brings into focus one of the most pressing issues in Eastern Himalayas and South Himalayas region, the increasing frequency and intensity of flood triggered by the turbulent Teesta river system, with extreme weather events, glacial lake outburst, landslide, cloudburst, and infrastructural fragility becoming more common in the wake of climate change. The vulnerability of Sikkim and North Bengal has been laid bare in recent years as we reflect on the October 2023 Teesta flood disaster. Today's session seeks to explore innovative disaster risk reduction strategies, regional planning approaches, and climate resilient infrastructure model that can be adopted to build long-term flood resilience. So before we begin, just a small request to all the participants. If you have any question or reflections during the session, please feel free to note them down. We will be addressing them at the end during our brief introduction round. Okay, so it's now my great privilege to introduce our key speaker for today, Dr. Vimal Khawas, who is the professor in the Special Center for Study of Northeast India at Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, New Delhi. Dr. Khawas is widely recognized for his extensive research on disaster risk, governance, mountain vulnerability, and regional development planning in the Eastern Himalayas. His work offers deep insights into the social environmental dynamics of fragile regions like Sikkim and North Bengal, particularly in the context of flood, landslide, and climate-induced hazard. As the Teesta River increasingly become a symbol of turbulent change in the region, his expertise on integrated disaster risk reduction and climate resilience is both timely and critical. We look forward to hearing his perspectives on creating safer, more adaptive, and inclusive strategies for communities living in this risk geography region. Sir, the floor is yours. We are eagerly looking forward to your keynote address on today's topic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Gaurika. Thank you so much, Gaurika, and the entire team of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. Thank you so much for having me, for inviting me to be part of this very important, lecture series organized by your institution very regularly. I do not know other members of your institute, but let me also thank the head of your center and your senior colleagues in your center for having me for this lecture series. Today we have with us a very senior, retired disaster professional with us, Mr. Ganesh Khanal. He was the director of disaster risk reduction in Disaster Management Authority of the government of Sikkim. So he has been very kind enough to be part of this presentation. I welcome Ganesh sir to you. And let me also welcome all the participants. Many of them I do not know, but some of them when I see the names, I know some of them. My student Pribhat is there. Some others are there whom I broadly know. Thank you all for being part of this lecture. So I'm with your permission, I'm starting this presentation. The title of this presentation was given to me by Goirika, Managing Teesta Turbulence, Disaster Risk Reduction Strategies for Flood Resilience in Teesta, in Sikkim and North Bengal. This is a very important topic, and that was precisely the reason that I did not, thought of changing it. I have kept it as it was given to me by Goirika. But when I talk on disaster, I will be talking on the larger issues around disaster and focusing in flood here and there. So let me start with your permission. This is Vimal Khawas. I teach in the Special Center for the Study of Northeast India in JNU. I was with Sikkim University for about 16 years, from 2007 to 2023. I joined Sikkim University as a very young faculty. I grew there. I learned a lot from that university, and I have recently joined JNU. I was also a student of this university. My presentation will broadly cover these topics: overview of Teesta Basin, regional socioeconomic significance of this basin. Very briefly, I'll be talking on these development issues around Upper Teesta Basin, disaster risks in Sikkim and North Bengal region, recent floods in Teesta Basin, particularly focusing on the northern part, Teesta flood of October 2023, downstream impact of this disaster, and lastly, the issues and concerns around disaster risk reduction in North Bengal, Sikkim and North Bengal catchment of Teesta Basin. So the last 3 or 4 sections will be quite extensive. The first 3-4 sections will be very, very brief. When we look into the Teesta Basin, this is the overview of the Teesta Basin. Very common map. Most of us have already seen this map. If you see this map of Teesta Basin, you will see, a major part of Teesta Basin is occupied, or what we call shared, by Sikkim, followed by West Bengal Plain, Darjeeling Hills and West Bengal Plain, and eventually Bangladesh. But the lower part is a very narrow corridor. The basin consists of very narrow corridor, and a large part of Teesta Basin is occupied by, shared by Sikkim Himalaya. This is the source of Teesta River. Just for information, this is the glacier, what we call Teesta Kangse Glacier, and this is the lake that comes out of Teesta Kangse Glacier called Kangchen Cho. This is the lake, and this eventually gives rise to what we call River Teesta downstream. So, Teesta River is one of the 4 major rivers of Eastern South Asian region after River Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna. This river originates as Chombo Chu from the glacial lake called Kangchen Chu, Kangchung Chu, at an elevation of over 5,200 meters in the northeastern corner of the state of Sikkim. And Teesta flows the entire length of Sikkim, and it carves out some of the very luxuriant Himalayan and temperate and tropical river valleys. The river flows about 172 kilometers in the hilly region of Sikkim and Darjeeling, and it runs for about 98 kilometers in the plains of West Bengal and another 134 kilometers in Bangladesh, before eventually joining into Brahmaputra in Bangladesh. Therefore, this river drains a total geographical area of about 12,159 square kilometer. It's quite a big river basin. And out of these area of Teesta Basin, about 17% is occupied by Bangladesh. This table is the summary of what I've already said. It's very important to see that a major chunk of Teesta Basin falls within Sikkim, followed by West Bengal. West Bengal has about 23.5% of Teesta Basin, and about 17% is shared by Bangladesh. So therefore, when we talk about disaster, when we talk about various forms of disaster, including hazards, we really have to look into this composition. So whatever happens in the upper part, particularly in Sikkim, has a very clear connection downstream, which we hardly talk about. And as the Teesta travels down from Sikkim, it receives water from a large number of tributaries on either side of its course. And it forms a very complex and dynamic river basin, what we also call Teesta ecoregion. When we look into the regional significance of Teesta Basin, we may not be able to discuss deeper into the issues around regional, cultural and economic and environmental significance. I will very briefly talk about, this region has been a part of global biodiversity hotspot. United Nations have long ago identified this region as a very important global biodiversity hotspot. And it is a biodiverse region. And this region not only is the source of natural and bioresources, it also acts as a very important global ecological sink. It sequesters carbon and acts as a global ecological sink. This region is home to many groups in Sikkim, northern part of West Bengal, and parts of Bangladesh since many years. And therefore, it supports more than 30 million population, and it also ensures their human security in terms of their livelihood. This region also provides a very comprehensive regional environmental security of both Sikkim, Darjeeling Hills, West Bengal, and the downstream Bangladesh. But very interestingly, if you see this figure, although Sikkim forms a major part of Teesta Basin, 57%, Sikkim actually shares only 2% of the total population of Teesta Basin. Whereas West Bengal, with 23% share of Teesta Basin, has 51% of the total population of Teesta Basin. And Bangladesh, with about 17% of Teesta Basin, accommodates 47% of the total population of Teesta Basin. And this is where Bangladesh keeps on arguing that, since we have almost 50% of the population of Teesta Basin, we also want 50% share of Teesta water. So that is where we have a very, difficult situation there. We have a bone of contention. We have been trying to come up with a treaty, and we have not been able to come up with an implementable treaty so far, although we have been trying. And this conflict has been going on. And it is very important for us, the students of environment and disaster management, to understand this figure, because when we talk about disaster, we really have to understand these socioeconomic and environmental figures.
So, sorry to interject, sir. Can you please explain this conflict between Teesta water sharing between India and Bangladesh?
Yes, since it is outside the scope of, I may explain you this personally, maybe privately in phone, because I have worked on this, but it will take time, sir, because there were negotiations. Since this presentation is little outside that conflict, we are mainly focusing only on the disaster part. So maybe you could kindly pardon me.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
I'll send you the paper that I've written on this. I have written a very comprehensive paper which was published in Bangladesh on this, human security issues and how this conflict has escalated over the years. between India and Bangladesh because of Teesta sharing. So
Thank
I'm
you,
moving
sir.
ahead, sir. You know, since this presentation is basically on flood in Upper Teesta catchment, it's important for us to briefly, look into this Upper Teesta basin, especially in the context of water. We may not be going into the detail and deeper analysis of the geomorphology and the geomorphic attributes of the region, but I think it's important for us to understand that, when we talk about disaster in the context of flood, I think it is important for us to see this, map of the Upper Teesta catchment, particularly, consisting of Sikkim and Darjeeling hills. You see, it's all about water. Upper Teesta basin is, all about water. It's about glaciers, it's about glacial lakes, it's about rivers, streams, natural springs, and very heavy monsoon rainfall. This region gets upward of 3,000 centimeter of annual rainfall, and this is what we need to understand. When we try to understand issues around disaster in this region. It is also important for us to understand the dynamics of development in the Upper Teesta basin when we talk about disaster, because development has a direct, although we don't discuss this much in the context of, Upper Teesta basin, but it is, I think, very high time that we bring in the challenges of development, the trajectory of development that we have taken in the last 40 years, and also see how these capitalistic development ventures in Upper Teesta basin actually, contributes in exacerbating and worsening the, natural hazards and converting them into disaster. So with that reason in mind, I have, brought in some information on this particular issue. We in the Upper Teesta basin, especially in Sikkim and Darjeeling, we used to live in a very symbiotic and intimate human-environment relationship in the region. But this symbiotic relationship in the region has been, put to danger by diverse undercurrents of development in the last 30-40 years, and this is where the worry lies. If you see, just for your information, this is the demography of the Upper Teesta basin. And from 1901 to 2011, we don't have the figure for 2021 because we have not conducted census so far. But if you see the last 111 years of population growth, you'll see there was almost about 7 to 8-fold increase in the population. So which is itself quite notable, and we really need to be worried with this kind of rise in population in the region, which is rather fragile and geomorphologically vulnerable in nature. And if you see, the uppermost part of Teesta basin, which consists of 57% of Teesta basin, Sikkim, it's very important for us to look into these figures. Sikkim has now emerged as India's most prosperous state, in terms of per capita income. Since 1975, when it actually merged with India, Sikkim has transformed from a small agrarian economy to a diversified, very high growth model state. This is a very, very notable figure. And you see, the per capita income of Sikkim has, grown from about 2,000 in 1975 to 5,88,000 in 2004. And it is estimated that by 2025, this figure has gone up to 7 lakh. And today, it is the highest per capita economy in the country. And if you see this figure in case of West Bengal, it is less than 1.5 lakh. The per capita income of West Bengal is less than 1.5 lakh in 2024. So Sikkim has witnessed a tremendous economic growth after it merged with India. And if you see the real-time increase in per capita income, by 2024, Sikkim had witnessed 10 to 15 times higher per capita income than in 1975, which means the quality of life in Sikkim has improved or increased 10 to 15 times since 1975 when it merged with India. And the gross domestic product of Sikkim has grown from about 10 crore in 1975 to 52,000 crore in 2024-25. And very, very, importantly, Sikkim has witnessed an annual growth of 11.5% in the last 15 years, which is very high. The national growth rate is around 6, even less than 6 sometimes. But Sikkim has grown twice than the average figure of India. All these development looks very good on paper, but this development also comes with a lot of environmental and human cost that we need to understand when we talk about disaster in the Teesta Basin. This is another very, very important figure. You see, Sikkim's economy, how Sikkim has witnessed a, tremendous structural shift in the economy. This figure, this is agriculture, primary sector, mainly led by agriculture. It was around 50% in 1980-81. It has declined to 8%, less than 8% in 2010 and 11. It has further gone down in 2022-23. I have a figure, but I have not updated it. If you see the service sector was around 30% in 80-81. It rose till about 99-2000 to about 50%, and it was stagnated for a few years. Then it has started going down, and it has further gone down to about 28% in 22-23. And very, very drastically, very, very significantly, you see Sikkim has seen a massive growth in its secondary sector led by industries like pharmaceuticals, construction, hydropower projects, building construction, road constructions. They have very tremendously, impacted this sector. And, from 2005 and 6, Sikkim has seen a steady rise in its secondary sector. And the problem here, the crux of the problem here is this particular sector is environmentally sensitive sector. It draws a lot of environmental concerns, and it corroborates with what is happening in Teesta Basin in the context of the increasing intensity and frequency of disaster, natural hazards turning into disaster in not only in Sikkim but also in the downstream Teesta Basin. This chart looks very simple, but if we really need to delve deeper inside this particular chart consisting of primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. So I thought it would be nice to share this figure with the participants. And we really need to understand the secondary sector, this kind of share. It's 62% in 22-23. The figure is 62 point some percent in 22-23, and which is not common. It is very uncommon for a Himalayan state. We really have to compare this with other northeastern states and other Himalayan states like Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, and see whether those Himalayan states are also witnessing this kind of structural shift in economy. Then only we will be able to come up with rather scientific conclusion. I'm only sharing this for the information of participants. So therefore, if you see, there is a decreasing trend of primary and tertiary sector. There is a rapid growth of secondary sector, and secondary sector mainly consists of roads, buildings, hydropower, pharmacy, railway, and other activities. So, with this background, if we see the disaster risks in Sikkim and North Bengal region, let me briefly highlight. We keep on talking about hazard. We talk about disaster. So we really need to understand these two terms. I may not have time to talk on the technicalities of this term, but as a student of environment, as a student of disaster risk reduction, it is very important for us to differentiate between hazard and disaster. Let me only tell you, all hazards are not disasters. Hazards are basically potential danger, what we call in Nepali or in Hindi or in Bengali, khatra. Hazards are, it is a potential danger. It may convert into disaster. It may not convert into disaster. So hazard can be human, hazard can be natural, but disasters are largely human-made. That is why very recently UN gave a very important statement recently that there is nothing natural about disaster. although we talk about natural disasters, they are natural hazards, but they were converted into disasters because of human activity. So therefore, the UN now says all the disasters are human disasters. There is nothing called natural disaster. That is what we need to understand. Some of the important natural hazards that characterize the upper part of Teesta Basin include earthquake. We have already witnessed a large number of earthquakes. The recent earthquake that we witnessed in the region was 2011 earthquake of Sikkim. Then smaller and minor earthquakes we keep on hearing. Landslides, very important natural hazard. Cloud burst, flood, drought, sometimes even epidemics. So these are the hazards that often feature the region, and sometimes they are converted into disaster. More recently, we have also been talking about climate change, and then in the context of climate change, we talk about glacial retreat. Most of the Himalayan glaciers are not behaving properly. They have been receding. We have been talking about glacial lakes. We have also been talking about potentially dangerous glacial lakes in the region. As I said, as in other part of the Himalaya, the glaciers in Sikkim Himalaya have also not been behaving properly. We have witnessed glacial retreat in the Sikkim Himalaya. We don't have glaciers in Darjeeling Hills, but we have plenty of glaciers in Sikkim. And there are altogether 266 glacial lakes throughout the Teesta Basin, as according to the figure of ECMOD. And out of these glacial lakes, 55 lakes have been identified as potentially dangerous. That means they have the chances of getting collapsed. They have the chances of being collapsed anytime. And because of that, as early as in 2017, Sona Wangchuk, of this Three Idiot fame, he also visited Sikkim and he tried to fix one of the potentially dangerous glacial lake, and that happened to be South Lona, which actually collapsed in 2023. This is just the map of Sikkim that shows, it's all about the glaciers, glacial lakes, rivers, streams, natural springs. South Lonak Lake is located somewhere here, which actually got burst. The bluff happened because from here. And this is the settlement of Sikkim, which is very, very vulnerable in nature, which we need to look into. This map shows these are the glacial lakes of Sikkim, and these are the location of potentially dangerous glacial lakes in Sikkim. And look at the habitations. They are also vulnerable. This is Teesta River in Sikkim flowing down, and look at the habitations. So they have all encroached the riverbed, extended riverbed, and the river will claim these habitations anytime. They are all very, very vulnerable, and we do not know whether we have disaster preparedness for these habitations. This is the table that shows, Teesta is one of the most ferocious rivers in the world. And among the selected Himalayan rivers, you see, Teesta's sediment yield is the highest. It is 125.1 ton per hectare per year. This is the amount of sediment that Teesta brings down from its upstream. So this is the figure that was recorded at Anderson Breeze. This is around near Sevok Bazaar. So this also shows Sikkim is Sikkim is one of the swiftest flowing rivers in the world, and we really need to take Teesta seriously. Now, let us look at the recent floods in Teesta. What has happened in Teesta in recent times? Teesta has a history of devastating flood. The last flood which we saw in 2023 was not an isolated flood event. Teesta has witnessed a history of devastating flood. This is so because the basin's geology and geomorphology, when it combines with heavy monsoon rainfall, it makes this region a very, very vulnerable and susceptible to floods and other geomorphic events. You see, this is the last recent flood that we have witnessed, 2023 glacial lake outburst flood. We will discuss on this. And The last to last flood in 2027, there was also a flood in Teesta Basin, particularly in the lower reaches, not in Sikkim, but there was a very heavy rainfall in Sikkim and Darjeeling hills. And because of that, the gates of the dams were opened and a large amount of water inundated the plains of West Bengal and Bangladesh. And because of that flood, more than 6 lakh people were impacted, they were affected. And this was the time when government of, I have also written a paper on this, an article on this. You know, this in 2027 was the year when government of West Bengal even wrote to government of Sikkim, you know, complaining that there was no prior information on the water release. And that was the event that also triggered, you know, the intra-state conflict on water management, and which we really need to be serious about, because in future this kind of event may increase. In 2015 also there was a flood. There was a very heavy rainfall in Sikkim and Darjeeling Himalaya, and it resulted in flash flood, and a record surplus discharge from Ghazaldoba barrage also inundated a large amount of portion of land in Jalpaiguri, Kuch Bihar, and Bangladesh region. And one of the most important and the earliest recorded flood history of Teesta Basin was 1968 flood. There is a lot of material on this, you know. CSC, if you read the 1991 State of Environment report of Center for Science and Environment, New Delhi, they are very, very meticulously and in detail they have covered the Teesta flood of 1968, and this was one of the major floods that permanently altered the floodplains of Teesta. Apart from that, there were floods in 1955, there were floods in 1950, you know, and similarly there were so many floods in the 40s, 30s, 20s. But one of the major historic flood that took place in Teesta Basin was in 1777-78. I have not written anything here. I'll just tell because this was the time. We don't have a proper record of this flood, but there are, you know, literatures written by the Britishers. Gazetteers also talk about it. You know, in 1777-78, there was a massive flood in Sikkim, Darjeeling region, and there are also literatures that talk about earthquake during this period of time. And this was the time when Teesta River changed its course. You know, I don't know whether many of you know, Teesta was the tributary of Ganga till 1777-78. It was only during this massive flood event that Teesta changed its course. There was a river piracy, and it turned from Sevak Bazar, it turned towards, you know, Ghazaldoba, towards Jalpaiguri and Kuch Bihar, and it started a joint Brahmaputra eventually. And if this kind of river capture and flood events happens today, there will be thousands of deaths, you know, and it will be a massive, gigantic flash flood will happen. So hopefully this kind of, you know, disaster will not happen, because our preparedness has also increased. So let's quickly come to the Teesta flood disaster of October 2023. Many of us know, many of us may not know. You know, this Teesta flood disaster of October 23 actually happened because of the outburst of South Lonak Lake. There are drivers that were talked about. You know, we talked about cloud burst, we talked about Nepal earthquake, but eventually scientists, they said it was because of the collapse of the lateral moraine leading to landslide. And this landslide forced the lake water to find its way downward, and it took the form of glacial lake outburst flood. You know, this is the map at that point of time. It is a satellite map. You know, you see, this was the size of the lake, and this was the size. This became the size of the lake after the glacial lake outburst flood. Possibly this was the area where landslide happened, and this huge chunk of landmass, this moraine, this fell down and occupied the lake area, pushing the water outside of its area. You know, now there is a question whether this disaster, 2023 glacial disaster of Teesta Basin, was natural disaster or a human disaster? Human disaster. You know, if you look into the history of globes, glacial lake outburst floods, they are not a new phenomenon. They are not new things to the Himalaya. But the only thing is that their occurrence has become more frequent in the past few decades. And because of that, the
Excuse me, sir. You are not audible. Sir, you are not audible. I think it's network issues.
Your audio is not audible.
I think sir is disconnected. Hello. Hello. Due to some technical issues, sir is disconnected. So after some time, sir will join. Please, everyone, please wait for some time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, where was I?
Sir, you can share your presentations now. Now you can share.
No, where was I disconnected? I didn't know that I was disconnected. I was just speaking and speaking.
So GLOs
GLOs,
are not new occurrences. You were there.
Which one?
Sir, GLOFs are not new occurrences, but they are happening repeatedly. You are in that particular slide.
Okay. I'm just share the entire screen.
Sir, that slide which mentions the 2023 GLOF outburst incident.
1 sec. Just opening. Are you seeing the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I don't know. Where was I? This
Sir, 2023 that hazard, that disaster that occurred.
yeah.
Yes. This.
Okay.
Sir, after that.
Okay. So I'm continuing from here, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is the satellite imagery of the glacial lake after this moraine collapse and occupied the area of the lake. A large amount of water came down and it created the glacial lake outburst flood. This was what I was saying, nah?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, you are not audible again.
I think there is some technical issues.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got again disconnected. Yeah, this is only the name is JNU. We have so much of problem.
Yes, sir. No problem. Yeah.
I mean,
You can share.
so are you
Yes.
the presentation?
Yes.
Nah?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So I'm just. So are you seeing my presentation now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The question
Yes.
is now. I was just showing you the satellite image of the lake. Then what I was saying was, there is a question whether this disaster was a natural or a human made. And then I was saying, these glacial lake outburst floods are not a new phenomenon in the Himalayan region. It has been there. It has been occurring in the Himalayan region till geologic time period. But the only thing is that their occurrence has become more frequent in the past many decades. And this, because of this, activity, the number of potentially dangerous glacial lakes have been increasing across the Himalaya, and Sikkim Himalaya is not an exception in this regard. So, what I was also saying was, on top of that, climate change has been accelerating a large number of geomorphic processes in the Himalayan region, and this is what our planners and policymakers could not foresee when they designed hydropower projects in the late 90s and early 20s. They could not foresee the rapidly changing, natural characteristics in the region, and that is how today these dams have been creating problems to us. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just rechecking. So this was also, I've already presented. I'm again saying, to design a hydropower dam, we need at least 42 years of water data. This is what was said to me by a very senior engineer, dam engineer. But in case of this Teesta dam, tree dam, which was collapsed in the event of flood, the recorded flood was only of 680 cumecs, which was recorded in 1973. And based on that data, this particular dam was designed to withhold 7,000 cumecs of water. Okay, so that is how the problem starts, and that is why it is important for us to understand that Sikkim and Darjeeling, being a very backward Himalayan region, has been less researched region, and we do not have long-term data on table to play around. And while we design big dams, we designed big dams in the early 2000s, and that is the reason why a large number of anti-dam activists question the technical, environmental, and human procedures followed by the proponents of dam in the Himalayan region as well as in Sikkim Darjeeling region. This also I showed. This is the Chungthang Dam before the flood. This was already holding a large amount of water. This is Lacheng Chu, from where this Gulf water laden with debris came down. This is Lacheng Chu, and this is the map after the flood. You see, the entire, almost 80% of Chungthang town was washed away, because these were very, very vulnerable settlements. The government should not have allowed this settlement to happen in the first place. But since it was allowed, and because no one could foresee that this kind of gulf, 80% of Chungthang was washed away. This is a recent Dharali event. As an example, I put it. See, you are seeing, do you see these settlements, participants?
Yes.
Do you see? Look at these settlements. These are practically riverbed. Yeah, this is riverbed. So river can claim anytime. See, this is the riverbed. Okay, so once upon a time, this river might have deposited seals and sand here. It could be the alluvial fan of this river. But over the years, since this river became silent, people thought that this is a safe place to live in. So they started constructing houses, and as a result, look at this. Look at this. It has claimed. The river also has a memory. It claims its land. You cannot encroach upon its land. So see, this is how flood. I don't know. Many of you might have seen this. This is how flash flood takes place. Are you seeing this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See how this water has reclaimed its space. So if you encroach upon, this is how the water will encroach. So we should not encroach the riverbed. Look at this. So because of this flash flood, so I'm just stopping here. This flash flood have already killed more than 5 people, and around 100 people are missed. They are the missing one, but they have also died. So more than 100 people have already died because of this flood, which is very small compared to the glacial lake outburst flood of Sikkim of 2023. So, now the question is, had the dam gates of Teesta 3 been opened on time, the impact of flood would not have been would have been much milder. That is what scholars believe. Teesta 3 dam collapsed because there was an argument that the gates were all closed and we could not open up the gates of the dam. So therefore, the water could not go down. And as a result, the accumulated water was not being, the dam was not able to withstand the accumulated water, and therefore eventually it collapsed. So, and that happened because we had a very poor early warning system. There was no information about this flood unless late. It was very late by the time information came down to Teesta 3 dam. So there is an argument among the scholars and activists that if the gates of Teesta 3 was opened, the impact of flood would have been much milder. But by the time the information was received, possibly the water has already hit the dam, and therefore it forced the staff members of the dam to flee away and save their lives. And therefore, and moreover, if there was no dam, for example, if Teesta 3 was not there, what would that have happened? It may not have turned that hazard, glacial lake outburst flood, into disaster at all. It may not. But there is a question. We can still debate on this. So what happened? Because of the collapse, because of this glacial lake outburst flood and the eventual collapse of Teesta 3 dam, what happened? A large number of settlements downstream got impacted. Chungthang, as we have just seen, Chungtham was, almost devastated. There was a major impact on Bikchu. There was a major impact on Singtam. Rangpo, there was a major damage in Rangpo, particularly in the Bengal side. There was a major impact in Malli. Teesta Bazar is almost under Teesta River now. You can see, you can Google and see Teesta Bazar is almost, half of the Teesta Bazar is inside Teesta. And the road that actually goes towards Darjeeling is, we don't see that road now. It is almost under the water. There was a sizable damage in 29th mile. There was also the damage in Kalijora settlement. Not much, but there was a damage. And two more villages that was very badly impacted by this gulf of 2023 was Chamakdangi. No one talks about these villages. These are the forest villages. Chamakdangi is the forest village located in Jalpaiguri district. I'm just clicking here just to show you. I'll take you to this map will take you to Chamakdangi, hopefully. Are you seeing this map? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So this is Chamakdangi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You are seeing this now? So this
Yes,
was
sir.
a village which was very badly impacted by the Gulf event, and this is a historic village. It was the farmhouse of the kings of Kuch Bihar and Jalpaiguri in history. There were more than 1,400 households, and this used to be a very, very fertile paddy field. So it has all been now encroached by Teesta River, and the households that actually live in this Chamakdangi village now is less than 60 households. So there is a very, very, it's a very tragic story to be told, and some, researchers should go here and find out what is happening here. But we hardly talk about these villages. So I'm just, so are you seeing this slide again?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
Chamakdangi is the village that was not talked about. I'm just putting in. Then, one sec. Then there is another village which was impacted. It is called Totgaon. This is also in Jalpaiguri, which was very badly. It is still underwater. I'm just taking you there. Bear me for some time. I'm not showing you the pictures from upper catchment because it is all there. So you see, Are you hearing? Are you hearing?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, sir.
I'm just stopping here because we don't have time. So, this Totgaon is another very, very badly impacted. Now, NS10 was very, very badly impacted. There has been a rise of riverbed to the tune of 15 to 20 meters, particularly in the Bengal catchment, in the Darjeeling catchment, because of this flood. About 180 deaths have been reported. This also includes the missing case. Thousands were displaced, and more than 1 lakh people have been affected. The loss of properties and habitations have been huge. Sikkim has reported more than 3,000 crore of loss because of this flood, and Kalimpong has reported upward of 110 crore of loss because of this Teesta flood. This is just a representation of how this is, and that's 10. This was what happened. So what would have happened? Now the other question is, what would have happened if Teesta 5 dam below Teesta 3 had also collapsed? Teesta 3 collapsed, and we have seen what happened. If Teesta 5 had also collapsed, what would have happened? This is Teesta 5. This is located about 40 kilometers downward of Teesta 3. And this was the dam that actually withstood the flood water. And this dam was badly damaged, but this dam actually withhold all the Gulf water as well as the reservoir water of Teesta 3 was withheld by this dam. And because of this dam, the degree of flood was relatively taken care of by this dam. So if this dam had also collapsed, what would have happened? That is the question that we really need to ask and seek answer for. So downstream of Teesta 3, we have 3 functional dams at the moment. There are other under construction dams. Teesta 5 is there that I've already shown you. Then we have TDLP 3 at 27th mile in Kalimpong. We have TDLP 4 in Kalijora. These are the 3 functional dams. So if Teesta 5 had also collapsed, the combined water would have potentially also, collapsed Teesta TDLP 3 and TDLP 4. And if that had happened, you see the map. One second. You see this map. This is River Teesta, and I have already told you till about 1778, this river used to flow this side. You are seeing it, na? Are you seeing this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Teesta used to flow this way. Now Teesta started flowing this way only after the flood, which was followed by earthquake, and it changed its course towards this way, and it started joining Brahmaputra. Otherwise, it was flowing this way. And mind you, this is Siliguri with a population of about 15 lakh now. So if Teesta 5 had also collapsed, it would have also collapsed Teesta TDLP 3 and TDLP 4, and the combined the gigantic volume of water would have potentially, pushed Sevak Bazar. This is the second, and it would have pushed this is a small stretch of forest of about 10 kilometers. This is what we call Vaikuntapur forest. It would have pushed this forest, and it would have, entered into Mahananda, and it would have washed majority of Siliguri. And this is what we have not discussed, but we need to discuss. So Teesta water would have taken with it most of the human settlements downstream of Dikchu, and it would have pushed Sevak forest, and it would have entered into Mahananda rivers and joined Mahananda river, possibly washing away major part of Siliguri city. And this event, if this event would have occurred, now this event would have given us one of the biggest human disasters in the history of Eastern Himalaya. Fortunately, that did not happen. But we really need to understand that, you know, the geomorphic history of Teesta is very complex. And we really need serious research. We need integrated planning, and we need integrated preparedness for it. That is what I want to communicate with this particular map. I hope you are hearing me. So, you know, this is the
Yes.
Siliguri town. Siliguri town city is one of the fastest growing cities in India today. It grew, you know, at the rate of, I think it grew by 45% between 2001 and 2011. So it is also called the gateway of Northeast India. But Siliguri today is one of the most vulnerable cities, but we do not talk about it. Debate is only around Sikkim. We don't talk about what is happening downstream. So I think through this presentation, I really want to communicate that we really need to talk about these connected problems, because we share a common basin, and the downstream is really, really vulnerable because of what happens upstream. Okay, so coming down to disaster risk reduction in North Bengal and Sikkim catchment, you know, Teesta flood has unmasked our disaster management flaws, the flaws of disaster management in India. It's very clear. So if you see the situation, what happened after Teesta flood of 2023, this flood, we all know, it unleashed havoc across both Sikkim, Darjeeling Hills, Doors, and even in Bangladesh, although we don't have figures for Bangladesh. But it was only Sikkim that actually garnered significant national attention, including extensive media coverage and coordinated relief efforts. Sikkim was immediately sanctioned upward of 42 crore, and last year Sikkim was sanctioned about 550 crore by the government of India. Whereas downstream areas, including Darjeeling Hills, not to talk about Doors, they don't even figure. Even Darjeeling Hills was majorly impacted, but even Darjeeling Hills were largely overlooked, and the communities were left grappling with losses. So therefore, this disaster, this is what I call disaster injustice. The concept of disaster injustice have been coming up very, very, you know, prominently in recent times, and this is what I call disaster. This is internal disaster injustice. I'm not talking about international disaster injustice. This is internal, even within a nation state. Disaster injustice like this happens, and this is where we really have to demand an urgent relook into the very institutional framework of disaster management in India. And along with it, we also need to talk about, you know, at the national level, we need to talk about an integrated approach to disaster. We cannot treat disaster in a piecemeal way. You cannot talk about only Sikkim, you cannot talk about only Darjeeling, you cannot only talk about, this is not only about Teesta Basin, this is true for all the basins. We really need to see things from integrated approach, because the problem is common, it is not individual. We also need to talk about transboundary cooperation. When we talk about transboundary river basins like Teesta, you know, we really need to talk about transboundary cooperation. I'm not able to go in detail of this. We need to talk about including disaster management into the concurrent list. Why I'm saying this, because, you know, disaster is largely a state subject at the moment. Although Constitution does not talk about it, but, you know, if you see the Disaster Management Act of 2005, it largely gives the responsibility of disaster management to the state government. So as a result, what happens is Government of India only gives the states technical and financial support. But for example, in the case of this Teesta disaster, what happened? When this glacial lake outburst flood happened, Sikkim immediately declared it as a national disaster. Whereas government of West Bengal did not declare this disaster as a disaster in Darjeeling and Sikkim, Darjeeling and Kalimpong Hills. So as a result, you know, Government of India will give you money only if you declare it as because there is a concept called disaster fund. Whereas in Darjeeling region, this disaster was not declared as a disaster. It was only a natural hazard, which was, and there was a political connotation to it. Declaring a disaster would have, invited a certain sum of money to Darjeeling Hills, and potentially BJP would have claimed footage. So maybe because of that, because of this political angle, Darjeeling disaster, this event in Darjeeling was not declared as disaster. So as a result, Darjeeling was sidelined, Dwarfs was sidelined. Only Sikkim received a certain amount of relief and also expertise. So therefore, we really need to talk about including disaster into concurrent list. When it is in the concurrent list, even if the state does not declare it as a disaster, central government can chip in and it can declare it as a disaster. That is why I think it is very important for us to debate, talk about putting this disaster into a concurrent list. And we also need representations from the Northeast in the Disaster Management Authority of India. If you see the composition of Disaster Management Authority, we do not have people in NDMA. So they think whatever they think they will implement. So they have no idea of what happens in our region because we do not have our representation. So I think we really need to push for this at the national level, that we need representation from our part in the Disaster Management Authority, National Disaster Management Authority of India. So, and Teesta Basin is technically a part of Northeast India because Teesta Basin is a part of Brahmaputra region. So Brahmaputra board also works in Teesta Basin. So technically, technically Teesta Basin anyway fits into Northeast India. So we need our representation from this part in NDMA. That is what and are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And nextly, it is also important that we really need a comprehensive guidelines. We need bylaws for settlements and construction activity. We just saw that Uttarakhand glacial, this flash flood, where we saw how the settlements were swept away because they were constructed on the riverbed. So we need a very strict guidelines. We need strict bylaws for the settlements and construction activities, like in fragile zones like the Himalayas. And the Teesta flood as well as this Dharali flood should serve as a wake-up call for the policymakers and all of us. And this is a longitudinal profile of Teesta. So therefore, if you see, this shows how connected we are. It's all connected. So whatever happens here, it will trickle down in this pocket. Whatever happens here, it will trickle down here. So when we approach a problem, this problem we have to approach in a very comprehensive way. That is why I've shown this. So we cannot approach a problem in the piecemeal. So if something happens here, we cannot address only the problem here because this problem will trickle down here. So we need a very, very comprehensive and holistic approach to address an issue like disaster. At the regional level, that was at the national level. At the regional level, I also think is we need a very strong regional voice that will say no more mega dams in Upper Teesta catchment. We should not allow any new dams in the Upper Teesta catchment because we live in a common river basin here and we are connected. So when Sikkim decides to construct a dam in the upper catchment, when West Bengal decides to construct dam in Darjeeling catchment, they really need to consult with the people in Dwarfs and also with the people in Bangladesh, because whatever happens upstream, it will eventually come down to the downstream because we are connected. It is a common river basin. So therefore we have to create a common regional platform, and that platform will have to talk about no more mega dams in Teesta Basin. Secondly, Sikkim, today has one of the highest densities of hydropower projects in the country. But Sikkim does not have a comprehensive regional hydropower policy. They say they have a two-page policy, but they do not have a comprehensive policy. So we really need to talk about this. We need to mainstream disaster risk reduction and climate change with hydropower policy, which has not happened so far. We have to talk about contingency disaster risk reduction plan in all the existing hydropower projects, because there are so many hydropower projects operating in the region, in Sikkim and Darjeeling, and we have no idea whether they have disaster management plan. If tomorrow another bluff happens, what will happen? So we really have to push for this contingency plan for disaster risk reduction. And it is also very important that we have to mainstream environmental management plan. We have to mainstream disaster risk reduction, and we have to mainstream climate change in all our development projects. Okay, particularly in the sensitive sector. I'm just taking you again to this video. This is what happens in a fragile Himalayan region. This is a very recent, most of you have seen this.
Yes, sir.
So, did you see that? Hello?
Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Where was the collapse?
So that was tunnel, the wall of tunnel number 7 collapsed in the last few days. This collapse, it is a very recent phenomenon. So we really need to mainstream environment management plan, disaster risk reduction, and climate change in all the development projects. If we do not do that, these development projects will take us all down to the hell in the mountain regions. That is what I'm trying to highlight. 1 second. Okay. We also need early warning system. We need efficient early warning system at the regional level. And it was the absence of efficient early warning system that actually led to this Teesta bluff. Had this early warning system or warning was on time, possibly many things would have been in control. But since there was no efficient early warning system, so therefore this installing and talking about this early warning system at the regional level is very, very important. And this is what Sendai framework also talks about. I can take you to this framework, but I'm not taking you. There are 4 very, very important priority areas of Sendai framework. You have to identify disaster risks. You have to build your capacity. You have to invest in disaster risks. So all these have to be very, very meticulously followed by in Upper Teesta Basin if you want to address this flood hazard turning into disaster in the Upper Teesta catchment. Then we need a critical discussion and debate on these issues, at least on the table at the academic level. The earlier thing that I discussed was at the policy level, at the national and regional level. This is for us, for the academicians also critically need to discuss and debate on these important things. The first thing is we really need to examine the trend and pattern of development in Sikkim in the last 30 to 40 years. This is very, very important because Sikkim has been developing very fast. It is one of the fastest developing states in the country. And Sikkim is the major part of Teesta Basin. So if something happens in Sikkim, it will automatically come down. It will harm the downstream, Darjeeling, West Bengal, and Bangladesh. So therefore, we have to be very, very seriously evaluate what happens in Sikkim. This has not happened. We only praise Sikkim. We praise Sikkim that Sikkim is the organic state. It is greenest state. It is the fastest growing state. But we also have to look into these issues because development is good, but it comes with a lot of cost. And that cost will not only be suffered by Sikkim, it will also trickle down to us, down in Darjeeling and the Bengal Plain and Bangladesh. So I think this is very, very important. We really need to examine the trend and pattern of development in Sikkim in the last 30 to 40 years. We also need to examine the dynamics of development in Upper Teesta catchment, both in Sikkim and Darjeeling. What kind of development, not only trend and pattern, what kind of development has been happening in this part of Teesta Basin, which is the heart of Teesta Basin. So and we really have to, I hope we all know there is a concept called payment for ecosystem services. No? Have you heard about the payment for ecosystem services? Where? Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We
Yes,
have
yes.
we have always talked about payment for ecosystem services, where we argue that the upstream provides ecosystem services to downstream. So therefore, downstream should pay to upstream. That is what we call payment for ecosystem services. But now we have also to debate payment for ecosystem destruction. For example, if upstream destroys the ecosystem, why should downstream not ask for payment? If upstream can ask for payment for ecosystem services, it's high time the downstream should also raise this question and talk about payment for ecosystem destruction. We can think this is just for debate. I'm not pushing this. I'm not imposing this. We have to think that way also. And thirdly, we really need to talk about integrated approach to disaster risk reduction in a shared river basin like Sikkim. For example, Sikkim is like Teesta. Teesta is a shared river basin. This is Sikkim. This is West Bengal. And this is Bangladesh. And Sikkim has its own disaster management plan. Darjeeling district and Kalimpong district, they have their own disaster management plans. Jalpaiguri and Kuch Bihar, they have their own district disaster management plans. And Bangladesh has its own disaster management plan, but they don't help each other because they were not coordinated. They have prepared their disaster management plan as per their interests. So therefore, what I'm proposing here is, can we talk of comprehensive regional disaster management plan at the basin level? We can have our own disaster management plans at the regional and local level, but can we also think of a body like Teesta Disaster Management Authority, and that will look into not only Sikkim, Darjeeling, but also of Bangladesh, because it is a shared basin. So can we think of comprehensive regional disaster risk reduction plan through Teesta Disaster Management Authority? That is what this is just academic debate. And we also need to talk about participatory disaster management planning, because Sendai frame, if you read Sendai framework identifies local population as the core of disaster management. It has very, very clearly communicated that, unless we take into consideration the interest of the local people, no disaster management plan will be successful. So therefore, when we talk about including people in disaster management planning, we are basically talking about participatory disaster management planning. So we really need to talk about participatory disaster management planning, at least at the academic level. So I'm almost through, and the other thing is, we also need to talk about integration of local and traditional knowledge in disaster risk reduction framework. This is what Sendai framework talks. And this map, this video clip, I'm playing again. This is actually the traditional knowledge. These are lectures, they are constructing a bridge that was lost away by sister blocks. But where is the platform? Where is the platform to integrate this knowledge in the formal disaster risk reduction framework? So we have been talking about this for the last 10-15 years, but even today we have not been able to fructify this debate. So this is I have the link is this link will take us to a paper written by Privat. Privat is participating in this seminar. He published a very nice paper in an international journal, and you can have this paper because I have submitted this presentation to Goyrika. So we really need to talk about how to integrate local and traditional knowledge into the disaster risk reduction framework following the Sendai framework. And as I have just shown you this clip, there are, we have a very rich traditional knowledge, and we have shown that knowledge time and again, but we are not able to integrate that rich traditional knowledge into the formal disaster risk reduction framework. And it is high time we need to talk at that, both at academic and policy level. And lastly, we also need to talk about disaster justice. With this, with the kind of lopsided disaster management which we saw in Teesta Basin in 2023, it is high time we need to debate on the idea of disaster justice. When we talk about disaster justice, I'm basically talking about framework that will emphasize on fairness. It will talk about equity in disaster preparedness, response, recovery, including losses and damage. We also need to bring in this idea of loss and damages. So with this, I end my presentation here. Thank you so much. Goirika, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you
I
for
hope
your
that makes sense.
session. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we now open the floor for a short interactive segment. If anyone has a question or would like to respond to this discussion, please feel free to raise your hand or type your thought in the chat box. And I have a humble request to all the participants to fill out the Google form link shared in the chat box. This will help you distribute the certificate of participations. Anyone has any queries or questions?
Can I say something?
Yeah, Ganesh,
Yes,
sir, please
yes.
go.
Yeah. So, in fact, I'm traveling also right now, but then it was a wonderful presentation by Dr. Khawas, and then it was a comprehensive thing what he described. And I don't want to go all about the things, but one thing what I have observed recently is the height of the Teesta bed. It has risen by 15 to 20 meters, as Dr. Khawas explained. So now the concern has to be more on that, in the sense that now it doesn't need a glove or any kind of river, this thing also. A small, big amount of rainfall would again, create a disaster scenario in parts of West Bengal and Sikkim. So that needs to be now the matter of the time. So if anybody can think of it and can do something on it, now the disaster will be more by the raising of the river beds, and then the little outflow of the water or little more rainfall will cause damages. That's all. Thank you.
True. So that is a very good observation, Gaurika. This Teesta bed has increased by 15 to 20 feet in the Bengal catchment, but from Rangpo onwards, particularly in the Teesta Bazar and the Malli region. So there was also a talk of dredging. But the expert committee which was appointed by Government of India has advised not to go for dredging. So they have advised that it will be cleared naturally. So, but the point is that, even if there is a rainfall one day, continuous rainfall for one day, Teesta is rising so high that it is submerging houses along Teesta Bazar area and in Jalpaiguri, of course, West Bengal. So, if another Gulf-like event happens, God knows what will happen. We really need to do some research on this. We need to talk with the policymakers because we need to address this sooner than later.
Okay. Here is some question in the chat box. One is from
Anik Biswas has
Soumi Chakravarti and Pallab Majumdar.
Okay. I just answered these two questions. Look, I'm just seeing this on the screen. Biswas has asked, how can railway expansion in North Bengal and Sikkim be made climate resilient without accelerating landslide hazards? And which is not possible. We cannot make railway project climate resilient because it is already creating so much of problem. Now the MP of Sikkim has also asked for some more railway line in the western part of Sikkim. So there is already a trolling in Facebook that we should not go ahead with, because Sikkim is only 6 lakh population and western part of Sikkim only 2 lakh. So for 2 lakh, you are spending crores, thousands of crores. That is not viable. Financially also that is not viable, And environmentally also, you just saw the clip, now how that the wall of tunnel 7
Yes.
has crumbled down. So if that is because Himalaya is very fragile, we all know, and that too, the eastern Himalaya is very, very fragile. It is so fragile that I don't know. I personally feel that this railway project will not be a success. This project will go down the drain eventually. So there is no question of climate resilient railway. It will not happen. Secondly, Vallabh Majumdar, this question was under design and not based on. Is it so? Okay. Vallabh, I said, I have talked extensively to the, dam engineers and dam proponents in the past. I was in Sikkim for 16 years. So one of my colleague, my friend in JNU, he was doing PhD in environmental studies. He joined the project there in Sikkim, and I was talking to him personally. He said, Dada, I'm senior to him. To design a dam and for getting green signal for the go ahead with the dam, we need the rule is we need at least 42 years of water data, and that is not available in Sikkim and Darjeeling because it is backward areas. We had no research. We have started researching Darjeeling Sikkim only about 20-30 years ago. 42 years to baat ki baat hai. So this is true.
Yes.
Over to you, Goirika, if there are any other questions.
Yes, sir. Here is another question coming from Shomi Chakraborty, which is how does deforestation and land use change in the Himalayas affects Teesta's flood behavior?
How does if
You
you
have already told about it, but
I have already talked about. I'll tell you one more thing. For hills and mountain regions, the norm of the government of India is the hills and mountains should have at least 60% of their geographical land under forest cover.
yes.
Okay. So if you see the figures of Sikkim, although 81% of Sikkim's land is under forest department, the actual forest cover is only about 47%. The rest of it is not forested. It either is westland or they are under other land use activities. Similarly, in Darjeeling, if you see, Darjeeling has seen a large amount of deforestation in the last 30-40 years. Today, the forest cover of Darjeeling hills is less than 40%. It is in the 30s. It's 35-36%. So when government of India has not said just like that you need 60% of forest cover. There is a scientific reason behind that. So land use has a very important role. If you expose land to a lot of capitalistic development activity, you are exposing the Himalaya to the aggressive geomorphic processes like landslides, mass wasting, work of because Himalaya has already been witnessing this lot of work of rivers, work of glaciers, work of winds. So the more you expose the land to these geomorphic processes, the more hazards and disasters will come into the picture. So that is why land is maintaining this optimum percentage share of land use of 60% of forest is very, very important. That is what we have to strive for.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Is there any questions from anyone?
Ankit
Shengupta. How can we have sustainable mobility in the North Bengal
Himalayan region? Sustainable mobility, we have to go for public transport, buses. The density of vehicle is also very high. This is another problem. We have not studied the transport system in northern part of Teesta, especially in Sikkim. Sikkim possibly today has the highest per capita vehicles in the country. The number of vehicles in Sikkim is huge. The number is very high. Even in Darjeeling, it's very high. So, sustainable mobility, that is what West has done. The West is gradually going towards public transport. We have to discourage private transport. We have to go for more sustainable public transport. That too, green energy, wala transport. We have to talk about CNG. We have to talk about,
Yes.
Basically vehicles run by green energy.
Yes, absolutely. And here is
Indiram
last
Dal, my
question.
friend, has,
Yeah.
what is your take on the research done on glove of Sikkim? Does the skeptic research done on it is acceptable to you? Dilli Ram himself is a geomorphologist. He's an expert.
Okay.
So he teaches in Namchi Government College. He's an assistant professor there. He is a very good friend of mine. In fact, most of the maps I have shown was drawn by him. He's like my younger brother. So I will not answer this to Dilli Ram. Dilli Ram will, if you want to answer Dilli Ram, you can answer that. Then Asa. I don't know Asa, but Asa, I have heard about her name. I know her through Facebook. So why is the sill deposit in Teesta Bazaar not being managed efficiently and on time before monsoon to reduce the flooding? So this is the million dollar question, Isa, because if you see the debates across social media pages, WhatsApp, we have been talking about this clearing of this debris from the bed of Teesta, right from the later part of 2023. We were talking about this dredging exercise, but Government of India has avoided. Whereas Government of West Bengal, there was a talk of carrying out this dredging activity, sometimes in 2024, but this could not materialize. So this is basically a policy problem. We have a lot of researchers have already advised the Government of West Bengal and Government of India to go for dredging or any other sustainable, measure to clear the riverbed. But it is the government which has actually been taking time. So it is actually the ball is in the court of the government. They have to do this. So I think hopefully they'll do this sooner than later. Suman Bhattarai has, will it be possible to shift and extend to the upper part from the present course? It's been frequently washed away. I don't know whether it is possible because there has to be a very extensive transport study. We need to study the geology of the region in order to advise whether it is possible to shift without doing a proper study, which cannot be proposed. But there has been an idea of alternate highway to an estate. An alternate highway has already this project is under construction. If you remember, there is a highway from Bagrakot towards Lava and down to Rinok and Ranipur and Gangtok. So that is one alternate highway. The other alternate highway is from Kalimpong to Samtar, and it will through Samtar, it will come to Panbudara, and then it will come down to Kalijoda. So these are the alternate highways that has been in process and under construction and under process. So hopefully this alternate highway will come up as a major highway sooner.
Yes. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you, sir. Before we close, a few words of gratitude. Our thanks to you, sir, and all the invited dignitaries for their time, knowledge, and visions. And I would like to thanks to the entire SAIARD team working tirelessly behind the scene. Actually, it's almost 5:40, and we should close our sessions. Actually, okay. If you have any queries, you can.
Angela is raising the voice.
Okay.
Angela, quickly. This will be the last question.
Okay. Yes.
Angela, Angela,
you can unmute yourself and ask your questions? Okay.
I think she will not. She might have raised her hand by mistake. So I think we can conclude. Oh, no, one second. She has
Okay,
just
okay.
No, sir, I'm here. Hello?
Okay.
what is your problem?
Yes, am I audible? So just a
Yes, yes.
quick query.
Yes,
I
you're
mean, I
audible.
couldn't type because it was like we are already running out of time. So I just I just have a quick query. Like, so I just wanted to know, like, the DRR plan that you talked about, how can the DRR for the Sivok-Rampur railway project kind of institutionalize the meaningful, like, community participation, like, especially from the vulnerable communities and the riverside communities, in order to address the landslides, floods, and all these seismic risks in the Teesta Basin or the entire the Darjeeling? How can it, go about, addressing these issues as a researcher or an expert?
DRR, Sendai framework very clearly says we have to include community as a very important participant in all the DRR plans. So how we include community is the job of the agency that actually prepares this DRR. As as a researcher, I will not be able to say how to do this. But for example, if for example, railway, say for railway project, Angela, please mute. Please mute your mic.
Angela, please mute.
Okay. If the railway project, if you are talking about railway project, and if you want the railway project while preparing their disaster management plan to include the community as part of the participants, then I think it is the railway that have to create a platform. So I, as an individual, may not be able to say how to include, but they have to create a platform where, but on paper we have this. When there is the concept called hearing, they have this hearing where they will only feed them with food and they will tell them to go. But actually,
Yes, sir.
that is the platform where you are allowing the community to participate. So we really have to institutionalize this. We have to come up with rules and regulations. And that is the work of the government. I, as a researcher, can only tell you have to do this. How to do it, how to go about with it, I think the blueprint has to be drafted by the agency who actually carries out this activity, DRR activity. And Angela, let me introduce Angela. Angela she did her MPhil, and where she looked into the impact of Sivok-Rampur railway project on the communities. She has done a tremendous work part of her MPhil, and now she is doing a PhD from Teesta University. She was my student in Sikkim University in MPhil. Now she is working with Professor Chandan in Teesta University.
Sir.
She will also be working on this railway project. So over to you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you so much, sir, for your such an informative and interactive session. And of course, thanks to our every participant here today for taking time out and contributing to this very important conversation. So let us continue to engage, learn, and work collaboratively towards a flood resilience and sustainable future for our Himalayan and sub-Himalayan region. So
thank you so much, Gaurika. Thank you so much. And let me also thank you and the entire team in the background who have made this presentation possible. I'm so thankful to you that you gave me the opportunity and the platform to share some of the very important concerns that I had. Now that I have shared it is with you. The researchers are there. I hope they have listened to it, and some of the very important questions need to be answered in the context of the disaster management in Teesta Basin. So with this, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
yes, most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
ma'am.
sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.